Yield 5 minutes to you.
Thank you, Chairman DeGoose. Thank you to the witnesses for testifying today on these heritage areas. Mr. Rincon, in your testimony regarding the Los Caminos del Rio heritage area along the southern border, we noticed that last night you submitted a revised or updated testimony, and we looked at it, and what you left out was this part right here. It says, "This is not to say that there are not clear and present threats which could spell out the destruction of our way of life. The most recently challenged folly has been the border wall as envisioned by Trump's Department of Homeland Security with 30-foot high bollard-style walls." Mr. Rincon, Border Patrol has seized 6,500 pounds of fentanyl already this year. That's more than in the first 6 months than all of the seizures in 2020. To put that in perspective, that's enough lethal doses of fentanyl to kill about 1.3 billion people, or 4 times the U.S. population. There's also a humanitarian crisis with young women, some as young as 12 years old, who are being sex trafficked across our border. Would you tell the families of the children that are dying due to fentanyl overdoses and the young women being sex trafficked across the border that securing our border is, quote, folly, unquote?
Sir, I would like to apologize for that comment. After submitting the first draft, I realized that this is a very touchy subject. Always when we put it in terms of the families and our communities, the priority does remain security. And a lot of my friends who do not live in the region do ask me about security. But honestly, I can only speak to my personal experience here in San Ignacio. And I suppose we owe it to the presence of the Border Patrol and our very capable local law enforcement that San Ignacio remains to be one of the most secure places I've ever lived. And some people have shared data with me about the local apprehensions. The trend.
Mr. Rincon, I'm going to have to move on here, but on August 7th, 2019, you tweeted the following from your public Twitter account in reference to Ivanka Trump. Quote, "Somebody take this dumb B-word's phone away from her." In the tweet, this expletive was actually spelled out. Mr. Rincon, this is your tweet, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah, we've got the receipt here of the tweet. Do you believe it's okay to refer to women with derogatory terms like this?
No, sir.
The website of your organization, the River Pierce Foundation, includes a mission statement that says you seek a vigorous response to callous behavior. What should your organization's vigorous response be to your own callous behavior?
Well, I will let the board of directors take that up.
Yeah, also on your Twitter page, you tweeted, "The border wall is now a central monument of white supremacy in this country. Like monuments to sadistic Confederates and murderous commanders of the wars on indigenous peoples, its purpose is to announce and uphold white terror and rule." Mr. Rincon, are people who want to protect our borders from the illegal movement of weapons and drugs white supremacists?
No, I don't think so.
Are people who are concerned about the human rights abuses and humanitarian crisis happening at the border white supremacists as well?
I don't know enough to speak about that.
Well, you put it out on Twitter for the whole world to see. So that's all the questions I have. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Guys, this is Mr. Fulcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, is Mr. Rincon still with us?
I don't know. Let me.
Mr. Rincon?
Clerk, is Mr. Rincon still on the call?
He is not.
Can you hold the clock, Madam Clerk, while you're free? Thank you. Did you say he is with us?
I do not currently see him on the platform.
Okay, Mr. Fulcher, he is not.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, I'd like to at least explain.
Hold on, Mr. Fulcher. Could you restart the clock? Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Fulcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to go for the record and submit these questions for Mr. Rincon in hopes that he would provide a response. But like Ranking Member Westerman previously mentioned, he had submitted testimony with disparaging remarks about the border wall and later removed them. And so my question for Mr. Rincon would have been, did a congressional staff or office instruct him to do that? And just get his response for that. I would like to know that. If so, any detail he would provide. And then why the change? Was it, does he still believe those comments, or was that no longer something that he believes? I also would like to ask Mr. Rincon if he's testifying in support of HR 2359, because he hopes that legislation will make it more difficult to construct a wall or stop construction altogether. Following that, I was going to ask Mr. Rincon if whose organization is the River Pierce Foundation, is listed as a partner for the organization Not Another Foot. And that publicly advocates against the border wall. And many of the posts on his public Twitter page were retweets of Not Another Foot, or their posts where they direct people to that group's website. So my question for Mr. Rincon is, what's been his organization involvement with Not Another Foot? Is there financial support that's provided for Not Another Foot? And if so, please provide any detail about that. So if there are conflicts of interest that, Mr. Chairman, that we would at least get some understanding for that. Lastly, I was going to ask Mr. Rincon that on Not Another Foot's website, which is publicly linked to his social media, there's a statement that says, tear down a giant racist monument. Chants of build the wall have accompanied incidents of racist violence across the country. The wall is a motivating symbol of the violent MAGA base that will continue to plague our society as long as it is allowed to stand. Stopping the wall will undercut the surge in anti-immigrant hatred in our country. Tell Biden to stop building the giant racist monument. So my question to him after that quote was, does he really agree with that previous statement of former President Trump supporters as a plague to society? So, Mr. Chairman, I realize it's difficult without him here. Those questions aren't for you, they're for him. But it's my hope that A, we submit those questions in the record, and B, that Mr. Rincon will give us a response to the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Fulcher. And certainly those questions will be submitted to the witnesses. And under Committee Rule 3, subparagraph O, Mr. Fulcher, we just ask you to submit those within.
Point out, Mr. Chairman, that with due respect, I want to clarify that the questioning of Mr. Rincon is germane to this hearing because he referenced the border wall in testimony that we had 4 days before he pulled that. And furthermore, the majority has been strongly encouraging every witness before this committee to fill out a witness diversity survey. The majority opened the door to wokeness, and it's only fair now that we should be able to point out when you're about a witness with a history of deeply concerning and problematic statements and tweets. And generally speaking, the people who are chosen to testify before a committee represent the views of the party that asked them to come and testify. And I realize that there's been anti-Semitic, there's been racist language that's been tolerated by the Democrat Party, but I would respectfully ask that for future witnesses that you not invite witnesses who disparage women and classify Americans who are supporters of the border wall as racist or worse. And I yield back to the gentleman from Montana.
Mr. Chair, I would yield back my time. Thank you.